the big tank. Once the readout on the dash tells them they can take all of that in, it's time to come in and take on new tires. More important to have fresh rubber and also to have a full tank of fuel. That's why they're taking so long. They needed to make sure that it was all in, all the fuel they could take. They did it in 14.1 seconds.
Fittipaldi, nice clean out. Roger Penske watches his cars. Both Fittipaldi, keeps track more of Tracy. Fittipaldi had to be careful coming out of the pits not to get two wheels over that bold yellow line to the left of the pit exit, or he would have suffered a stop and go penalty. It seems that all the cars have been very aware of speed limits in the pits here today, and we haven't had any trouble with that.
You know, often, if you wonder why Emil came in early, sometimes it happens this way, that the guy picks up, as he goes through the turn, the pickup in the bottom of the tank maybe isn't set just perfect. He picks up a little bit of air, and the engine coughs a little bit. It looked like that's what happened to Emil because he came in on his own. It was not premeditated by Penske.
Danny Sullivan, who assumed second place when Fittipaldi came in, is into the pits, and Gary Gerold's there.
Watching with the crew as they spring into action for what they hope will be the final time. Last time, Junior pitted on the same lap with Sullivan. That doesn't appear to be the case this time. Sullivan, who's been a three-time second-place finisher, rolling in 12.9 seconds. Terrific stop.
Fast though it is, Danny Sullivan has fallen back to sixth place now, and that brings Al Unser Jr. right up in contact with Bobby Rahal, but Rahal got around Al Unser Jr. Paul Tracy took the lead of the race on Fittipaldi's pit stop, and Rahal then began a fight with Little Al and moved into second place.
It's been easy to see the Little Al's had braking problems. I don't mean with the brakes, probably with the tires. If you notice often as he's gone into the turns, like when he's racing Danny Sullivan, he can't brake as late, and Danny really gathers up Little Al going into the turns.
Jack Arute, you mentioned that was part of Fittipaldi's game plan as Bobby Rahal makes his turn into the pits, but Jack, were they laid out and ready for him with that?
They were, because it's a long pit road, so they were able to jump over the wall. But Paul, he had a very close call as Bobby Rahal comes in for what should be his final pit stop and service from the Rahal Hogan team. Emerson Fittipaldi had a very close call coming down pit road. He wanged the wall and got some of the temporary banners wedged in this wheel. Very good and very lucky racing for Fittipaldi that it happened on pit road.
So Bobby Rahal in and out. Paul Tracy is still on the course and the leader of the race. Let's go to Gary.
Well, here's that ugly confrontation once again that's become so familiar. Cart officials, and we understand that Danny Sullivan may get a black flag. They say he exceeded the speed limit on pit road. Ed Nathman is furious. He said there's no way you can reach 80 miles an hour from where we are, about 5 pits from the end of pit road.
You know what's really scary, Sam and Paul and Jack, is that often a radar gun that goes out in an angle, it's a giant cone. It starts very sharp, and then it goes really wide. I'm not too sure that if they point down the straightaway in the pit, that they know that that radar gun is actually shooting the pit, or whether it got somebody in combination out on the track.
And here comes Al Unser Jr. in, Gary.
Well, this can make a whole new complexion as far as Junior is concerned if his teammate Sullivan has to acknowledge that black flag. So this is a critical stop. Now we are told that they've withdrawn the penalty. There was a discussion there will be no penalty. Junior rolling in 16 seconds, so maybe it won't be so bad for Sullivan as they're reviewing that situation.
0 to 60 for an Indy car is about 2.2 seconds.
Al Unser Jr. came out of the pits, but Bobby Rahal was able to get around as he came out of the pits. That dropped Al Unser Jr. back to 5th place, put Rahal in 4th. So now here is the current leader of the race, Paul Tracy, as he heads toward Jack Arute, and Emerson Fittipaldi will assume the lead of the race. Jack?
Well, very, very nominal stop. Tracy wiping his glasses, lifting the visor. Tim Bumps in the crew. Jerry Breon changing the outside tires. Roger Penske calling the shots and working the radio, letting everyone know when the jack is dropped. It's away in 12.4 seconds. Final stop for Team Penske today.
And the good news is that since they're down at the end of the pits, they can't break the speed limit, but they do have to be careful about how they cross that yellow line on the pit exit. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. In 2 weeks here on ABC Sports, it's the second of the two 500-mile races of the year. The Michigan 500, live from Roger Penske's beautiful Michigan International Speedway. Live at 1:30 Eastern Time, 12:30 Pacific. Now we keep an eye on the race with Paul Tracy in the lead. 83 laps of the 103 lap scheduled distance complete, and the intervals behind the leader with Emerson Fittipaldi laying back almost 6 seconds from Paul Tracy. And we ride on board with Danny Sullivan, currently in 3rd place. Again, a circuit totally lined with concrete barriers, and one which causes the driver to be so very careful. The lap leaders thus far today, well, they all belong to Roger Penske's team. Fittipaldi took the early lead as the pole sitter, then Paul Tracy took over, then back to Fittipaldi, then Paul Tracy, and then, of course, Paul Tracy continues his lead here in Canada at Toronto's Exhibition Place.
Interesting to see a race which does not mention Nigel Mansell among the leaders, and it focuses attention on the fact that it is very rare in this series now that a driver breaks down, that a car breaks down in the race. And you must earn your positions by speed on the track. 10 years ago, about 50% of the cars would break down in the races. Now it's a very small percentage. Big difference in the way racing is conducted.
Emerson Fittipaldi, he runs in 2nd place. That bright yellow car just behind him is Jimmy Vasser, who has Ford Cosworth power for the first time this weekend. And as he starts to get more improved equipment, Jimmy Vasser is definitely going to be a factor to contend with.
Going to take him just a little bit to get used to the Ford engine. Has a lot more bottom end power, and we know that it has a lot of top end power compared to the A engine that he'd been using previously.
Bobby Rahal in 4th place continues his pursuit of Danny Sullivan, closes in nice and tight.
Rahal went out of the race last week at Cleveland. He was literally galvanized. He realized only 7 races were left. He must win a race or 2. He may not be able to defend his championship, but certainly for the sake of honor, he must win a race or 2 this year. The start-finish line. They go down here to the gate into 3rd gear, and now they're accelerating down the long straight. 4th, 5th, and finally 6th before reaching 185 miles an hour, and the hairpin, which will be a 2nd gear hairpin. You hear the downshifting going on now aboard Rahal's car. This is 2nd gear, up quickly into 3rd, this S-bend combination, back into 2nd right here, and back up into 3rd. This long turn taken in 3rd, in and out of the throttle, now hard on it into 4th, and 5th coming up. Will be a 2nd gear turn coming up as you see the CNN tower there just ahead.
Moving up a position, Danny Sullivan's car. He runs in 3rd place. Get an idea how much he has to work that wheel to get his way around this racetrack. Here's the race summary after 86 laps. 3 cautions, 12 laps. Has pretty much taken the fuel battle out of the race, but the track itself has taken a number of cars out of the fight, most notably the 5 car of Nigel Mansell. Coming up on Lakeshore, the top speeds of the racetrack, and then slamming the gears down, jumping all over the brakes and into the corner, Bobby.
When they go into the turn there, when Sam was counting the gears down, people didn't hear a lot of the gear changes, and what he does is often the drivers miss 2 or 3 gears, and like he'll go from sometimes 5th down to 2nd.
Scott Goodyear back in the pits again. A day that could have been so proud for him has not worked out. This is his 3rd stop of the day, and definitely out of the sequence. They have been struggling with this car, though Goodyear has managed to keep it in the top 10, and just before coming to the pits was running in 8th place. Now, as he comes up to speed, we'll ride with Scott Goodyear. Here's that long curving straightaway. They're sailing ahead for Scott Goodyear, so he can come fully up to speed now, and just begins to slam down through the gears again. And there's Jimmy Vasser making a move onto the inside. You may have noticed, too, when we were riding with Bobby Rahal and Danny Sullivan, that the 75 car of Willie T. Ribbs was in the middle of the fight as they came into the first corner, and every inch the sportsman, Willie T., was able to move off the line and let that battle for the lead of the race come through. So at the front of the order, it is Paul Tracy, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, then Danny Sullivan. Bobby Rahal is close behind as we look through the entire top 12. Tonight, after life goes on in America's Funniest Hour, one of the biggest events in television history returns as they star in the classic miniseries The Thornbirds. That's all tonight here on ABC. Danny Sullivan sits in third place. Fittipaldi just ahead of him in second. And Paul Tracy, Fittipaldi's teammate, is the leader of this run as we move now to the closing laps here at Exhibition Place. Paul Tracy in front, 90 laps complete, 13 to go. Emerson Fittipaldi second. Then the Gallus car, Danny Sullivan. And then Bobby Rahal with perhaps his best run of the season. Then Al Unser Jr. driving for Rick Gallus. And in sixth position, it's Robbie Gordon driving for A.J. Foyt.
Now you can watch Paul Tracy right there on top of the screen, red and white car, and notice how careful he's really being. You know, he has about 6 seconds approximately on ammo, and he's really trying not to make any mistake. I don't think I've ever seen him try quite this hard, Paul.
Let's go pit side again, Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, remember at the top of the show we talked about the fact that Team Penske was trying to close on Nigel Mansell as we continue to watch the great run by the Gallus team as well. Well, this is coming to fruition. Paul Tracy leads, Emerson Fittipaldi is in second, but they have radioed to Fittipaldi that if he should stay in second place and hold off the closing Danny Sullivan, he will take the points lead. Fittipaldi is aware of it, and I'm just going to assume that he may have backed out of the throttle just a little bit to take over the points lead rather than the victory.
Well, of course, Jack, the team would love to see Paul Tracy win here in his home city. And I think also there's a risk that if Paul were to slow up to try to hand the lead to Emerson, Danny is so close behind Emerson right now that the whole strategy could backfire.
It would be a very popular win for Paul Tracy to win here in his home. They have never had a Canadian win an IndyCar race in Canada, so it would be a first. Jack Arute?
Well, Sam, you know, one of the things you got to remember, though, about Team Penske is when it gets down to the short parts of the race, they don't call the shots. It's left to each of the drivers. As much as Tracy would like to win, believe me, Emerson Fittipaldi has not let it go unnoticed that he shares 2 victories, as does Paul Tracy. He feels he's the leader of this team, and he should have more victories. So believe me, he's not backing off because of that.